Welcome back to Daybreak. Many thanks indeed for staying tuned to the program. At this time, joining me in studio on our big interview is Dr. Julius Muia. He's the PS, State Department for Planning under the National Treasury and Ministry of Planning as well. Welcome to the program, Dr.
Thank you.
Many thanks indeed for joining us today. Let me get straight into it. The President recently announced a freeze on all new projects until ongoing projects are completed. But there are those who feel that the President should also have directed an audit of the ongoing products to determine their status, where they are right now, their financing, and their completion plans. Let me get your take on this, bearing in mind you handle the very crucial docket of planning.
The planning for the economy, well, if you look at our long-term framework, Vision 2030, it defines what projects are going to be implemented by the national government, and some of them through the subnational government. Then at the same time now we have got the Big Four, which is big for us as a country. And we are really very excited about getting the Big Four to fast track and push the rest of the Vision 2030 projects going forward. So in terms of what we can do, the best thing to do is to prioritize. And what the Big Four has done is to prioritize our development agenda in terms of the projects that are being implemented and what the resources that we have, which are not a lot, can be able to accommodate in terms of financing, because government can't fund everything. So the little that there is available from the taxpayers' money, your money,
exactly, and all the viewers watching. Yes,
that's right. So that now is being used to finance the Big Four agenda projects mainly. But that's not to say that we have forgotten the other sectors.
Okay, so then what happens if we are to buy into that? What happens to the projects that may have stalled, even though they had a crucial function and they don't fit into the Big Four? Is that the end of those sort of white elephants?
No, the way we are implementing our development agenda is properly stated in the medium-term plan 3 that will be released not far from today, once it is finalized and signed off. So that framework, it provides the backbone of how projects will be implemented. But then again, there is the directive about not starting new projects, so that has to be honored. But that not to say that all the old projects will be abandoned. There are some that require little money, and therefore those ones are being completed slowly. Now, as to when new projects will come in, that of course has to be determined at the higher level in terms of the executive.
Yes. There's one of the crucial functions of your docket is monitoring and evaluation. I believe that falls under your watch. Now, when the President calls for a freeze, what does that tell us about our monitoring and evaluation tools? Are they not there? Are they not working? Because by the time you freeze development in a country, technically, I mean, it surely shows that there's some sort of crisis.
We actually have one of the best integrated monitoring and evaluation systems in this part of the world. We call it NIMES, National Integrated Monitoring and Evaluation System, where we monitor and evaluate the policies, the programs, and the projects that we have. And lately,
all of them across the country?
All of them, at the national level, at the subnational level. And lately, we are moving to even NIMES, which is electronic now, so that we've got an online evaluation and monitoring system where at the touch of a button you can know and establish the status of any project or any program that we are implementing. And so I wouldn't say that we have a problem with our monitoring system. In fact, far from that. I would say we are way ahead, and that is why we have organized this evidence to action conference, which is the best and the one of the big things that I can talk about in terms of this area. It is the first in Africa. Already internationally we have held 3 outside Africa, and now we have brought this to Africa so that the practice of monitoring and evaluation can be understood and can be embedded, such that as we are talking about public projects, as we are looking at programs, all of us are of the same mindset in terms of what we are monitoring, how we are monitoring, and how this is progressing.
Fair enough, PS. But then, and taking you back to the original question, the fact that the President said stop everything. For example, if you look at the sort of technology you have available, are you able to, at the touch of a button, tell us the status of every project around the country? Have you ever, as a ministry, sort of warned that, wait a minute, we're not doing well. There are a lot of uncompleted projects, a lot of projects with questions hanging over them. For example, we know that in the Ministry of Transport, there was supposed to be the construction of a new terminal of sorts at the JKIA. It was supposed to be a very big tender. Eventually, about 4.3 billion was paid in advance to some contractor. There is nothing now, and I spoke to CS Macharia the other day. He says they've called off that project. They're now negotiating with the contractor to see if they will refund that 4.3 billion. Projects like those make me wonder whether, does our monitoring and evaluation have the ability to, in a sense, raise the alarm? We have a problem here. Stop corruption before it becomes corruption. Just help us understand that.
Well, let me step back a bit. And I want us to appreciate that our framework of development, which is Vision 2030, it identified very many projects that have to be implemented.
Was that the problem? Well, there were too many projects.
No. Because then we identified that we have to move to upper middle income level by 2030. That meant that we must touch all the sectors. And as we were doing that, then we came up with many projects that we said these projects are a must. Now, then in the initial stages, we have got a prioritization program that we have been following. Now, in the course of that prioritization, you then look at a project that you want to implement and find, we don't have the expertise, we don't have enough money to implement these projects. Therefore, now the priority tends to shift to another project. And that is not to say we are doing it all wrong. It's to say at the level of development that we are as a country, we are ambitious enough to say we want to be among the upper middle income economies. And we will not shy from large projects like LAPSET, $35 billion program or project for that matter. That is close to half of our GDP. But we have said we will not shy from it. So it is in the course of that ambition, which is good for us as a people, as a country, so that we can move forward to stop this idea of problems of malnutrition, hunger, and lack of food, and the problem of unemployment. We have to think big, and that is what Vision 2030 portends.
Okay.
Granted, as you are doing big things like that, there are some that you will start, and you'll find, this one, we haven't gotten our numbers right. And there will be a few of them like that.
Is that what you feel is the main reason why projects stall in this country? Is it because of miscalculation, poor planning, or graft, as some feel it is?
I wouldn't even say it is either of the two. It is more of, most of the projects are so big, they are complicated, they are new to us, we have never done them before. If you think about LAPSET, coming up with a whole development corridor, it's not something that we've done before. Building a brand new terminal at JKIA, or just think about the standard gauge railway line. We haven't built a railway line before. I mean, the one that we had before, we inherited it from 1900 when it was built during the colonial era. So these are new projects that we are getting to, which are big in scale, in quantum, in technology, and therefore in situations like that, you'll find there is information that we don't have.
Okay.
And I think we should give ourselves credit, because even internationally, and for instance, like at AU level, we are being commended for implementing some of the large projects that, for instance, I keep on talking about LAPSET, because that's a big one. And we have gotten accolades because of that
Even though is it where it should be right now?
I would say we are almost there.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we've done part of the road. We are doing the port in Lamu. And we are designing the railway line. We are designing the pipeline. We have identified the 10 cities that are going to be developed along the corridor. I mean, it is somewhere.
It is somewhere.
Oh, yes.
But not where it should be. Let's be honest here.
Well, I would say this is a 2030 program. It's up to 2030. Yeah,
so we have
for the LAPSET. Yeah, we've got over 12 years to go.
Okay.
It's not something that you do in a year.
Let's talk about, I want to focus back on monitoring and evaluation. Does the, and I think it's run by Dr. Samson, I believe.
Yes.
Does that department have the ability to raise the alarm in case they sense that a project is not going well? Can they contact a relevant CS? Can they issue a press conference, for example? Because while a lot may be happening behind the scenes, Kenyans do not know about it. So what's the role of monitoring and evaluation in terms of stopping maybe projects that might be going wrong?
Waiga, I want us to appreciate the mandates of different institutions in government.
Okay.
And the mandate for MED, which is Monitoring and Evaluation Department, is to do that which is monitoring and evaluating. We produce annual progress reports that are available, and those are made public. And it is from those annual progress reports that one can pick that progress here is not at par, progress is too low, and that kind of thing. So now it is the role of the ministry, and for that matter, the implementing agency.
The implementing agency.
That's right.
Okay.
Now to look at, this is where I was supposed to be. According to the annual progress report, this is where I am, and therefore, this is the action that I should take.
Okay.
And in any event, the data and the evidence for the progress that we have to document in Monitoring and Evaluation Department, it comes from the implementer. So the implementer actually knows even before the information comes.
So for this case, the implementer could be a particular ministry.
Yes.
How sure are you that that ministry is giving you accurate data? Is there a way to independently verify that the Ministry of Agriculture have told you, for example, about the Hola Dam or the Galanakulalu Dam? They've given you this data. Is there a way to independently verify it?
I think one way that I would say we do that quite well, and I want to say our performance contracting system does us proud, is that we've got a performance contracting system in the public sector where the projects, the programs being implemented by every ministry, every state corporation are documented at the beginning of the year, and those are put in the annual performance contract, which is negotiated between that ministry or that agency and the office of the president. And on a quarterly basis, every ministry, every agency reports on the progress with regard to the projects that they have in their performance contract. Then, half yearly, we have got a verification where we go and visit.
Your staff, physically, or?
It is, no, they are drawn from all over government, but they are managed by the office of the president, the performance contracting unit. It's the one which coordinates that. So they go and verify physically on the ground that what you have reported, you have done, has actually been done. And so we've got an indirect way of making sure that we've got a verification system such that we are not receiving information in MED where they are showing that something is happening, yet on the ground it is not happening.
Governments the world over are known to spice the facts, you know, exaggerate a little bit. I mean, even when you go for an interview, when you ask a question, you usually give the top end sort of data rather than the bottom end. Can you work 24 hours? You'll easily say yes. While the truth of the matter is, you know that it's not possible to do so. How do you again ensure that the data you're being given is not data that's spiced up? You know, data that's been sort of exaggerated.
I want to answer this from a practical example. People who have not worked in government sometimes don't appreciate what kind of finesse and what kind of structures we have in government to make sure that what we produce is actually the truth. There are a lot of back checking mechanisms that we have in government. And you know, when you are not an insider in government, you might think that the numbers that you see are generated without a framework. There's a very clear framework of how government generates numbers, how they are double-checked to make sure that the information that comes out stands on its own. It has integrity.
It has integrity.
That is why, as I said, we've got the Monitoring and Evaluation Department, whose work is to monitor and evaluate. Then, for instance, we have got the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which occasionally they do surveys. They go on the ground. They collect information from people, live people, and people will give their experiences and say, these are the days that I've gone without food.
Yes.
These are the days I've eaten well. And from that, we are able also to have another indirect way of verifying that which is coming from a ministry or from a state agency.
Okay. I'm not trying to be a skeptic. I guess for me, and these are my experiences. For example, earlier this year, I hosted CS Eugene Wamalwa, and we talked a little bit about Galana Kulalu, and he gave certain numbers. And then I played a clip for him of a year ago and the year before, and the numbers he gave even back then were the same. The progress of Galana Kulalu is at this point. A year later in another interview, same data. A year after that, the same data. And I asked him, so is there progress in that project or not? He says there's progress. Then I host the Tana River governor, who comes here and expresses concerns about that same project. So that is why I asked, how do you fact check? Again, what ministries say, but you say that government has ways of fact checking.
A lot of mechanisms.
The data that comes out.
Yes,
okay.
a lot of mechanisms.
And we're going to leave it at that. So in terms of this particular system, how would you say briefly it is different from, for example, I know that last year there was talk of an e-promise, a new tool to gauge mega projects. And I know back in 2010 there was another tool as well, launched e-promise as well, but I think an earlier version launched by the Ministry of Finance and Treasury back then. What's the difference with all these systems that we launch as a nation?
I'll start, if you allow me, by defining the conceptual basis of these systems. And the conceptual basis is to monitor and evaluate. That's one thing. The other thing is that monitoring and evaluation, that is the NIMIS, and for that matter, e-NIMIS, which we are also pushing to the counties, so that we've got a county-based national integrated monitoring and evaluation system, is to make sure that you are capturing data on all the indicators. Now, when you are talking about e-promise, you are capturing data on projects.
On projects?
Yes, specific projects. That
so it's like one component?
Yeah, it's a smaller version because it's talking about a project. Whereas when you look at our national integrated monitoring and evaluation system, it is talking about capturing data on even programs, on policies, how they are being implemented. So it is more encompassing.
Okay, it's more comprehensive.
That's right.
If I go to your e-promise portal, where I have access to some of the data, and I had a look at it yesterday, and I look at some of the projects posted there, and I'm not sure what is there is accurate compared to what I'm seeing in my village or wherever I am. How can I get that information to you? Can the public be engaged in monitoring and evaluation?
Oh, certainly. I mean, because now, and going forward, we are going to have a county-based monitoring and evaluation offices, where the public can actually get in touch with their county offices, where we have got that county-based monitoring and evaluation system, so that then we decentralize that process of the national integrated monitoring evaluation system, because then you are talking about a guy in Bungoma. We don't have to have him come all the way
to Nairobi,
or call me Nairobi. He must be able to go to the Bungoma office, the county headquarters for Bungoma, and be able to interact with that office.
And say that this project, they promise that it will do this, but I live there and that's not working.
That's right. Yes.
Finally, the conference happening, kicking off today, if not happening today, how will that help the ordinary Kenyan in the long term? What will come out of it that you believe will make a difference?
It is making us be able to appreciate and use evidence-based policy making so that we are more efficient, more effective in our policy making, in our governance, in our accountability, and the execution of the projects, which then means that projects which perhaps take longer to be implemented will be implemented faster using the right technology, and people will appreciate the projects because they will have been done in a way which is based on evidence at their level.
And public servants will be kept accountable.
I have used the word accountability because that is also a very key aspect of this evidence-based policy.
I really have to sneak in this last question. Should there be a penalty for miscalculation, for poor planning, even if it's a first-time project? What do you believe there should be a penalty?
It depends on...
And I want to give you an example. If Wahiga Mwaura took taxpayers' money and started a project and I don't know whether you want to say miscalculation, whatever happened, it did not go as planned. Should I be punished for that?
Wahiga Mwaura, I think it depends on what level of penalty we are talking about.
Okay.
Because if we now go that area of penalty, we could also ask, should there be a penalty for journalists to tell the wrong information?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are punished.
So
we are taken to court.
Is it a society where we keep on looking at what should we punish or what we should reward for doing it in a proper way? So, I mean, I'm looking for a balance where you are saying if you are doing it very well, there should be a reward. If you are doing it very badly, there should be a penalty.
Punishment or a penalty.
But we should not just run with the penalty only. without looking at the other side of incentivizing positive behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's Dr. Julius Muia, PS, State Department for Planning under the National Treasury and Ministry of Planning. And if you want to find out a little bit more about some of the projects in your region, you log on to, is it
INEMIS and ePromise.
ePromise.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to get some data there on the portal. There's a public login. You don't need a password. I was able to have a bit of a look at it yesterday. All right. Thank you so much for
Thank you.